So my name is Lorna and I work at the University of Warwick, and I'm here to give you a presentation on scholarships, and I'll be focusing specifically on the scholarship that Warwick offers and our undergraduate excellence scholarship that you can learn about if you're applying to Warwick. Now, many universities will offer scholarships and all of the information will be very clearly listed on their websites. So we're not aware that there's any specific worldwide scholarships for undergraduate students. You normally need to go onto the individual university web pages and do your research. So it's another research specific information that you need to look for before you're applying. So, are you okay? Yeah.
Sorry. Because it.
So to give you a little very brief overview of the University of Warwick, how many of you have heard of Warwick? A few of you. Okay. So Warwick is a selective university. We're a member of the Russell Group and we're ranked top 10 in the UK and top 100 in the world. Now, to be a selective university, it means that we receive many, many more applications than we have spaces to make offers to. So it means that just because you have the grades that we might advertise doesn't necessarily mean that we can give you an offer on that place, because the vast majority of people that are applying to us also have those grades that we're looking for. We don't have space to make offers to everybody, so we need to select the best students, which makes it very, very competitive when you're applying to some of our courses. We're a selective university because of our rankings, but also in terms of like our teaching quality, our research quality, the general experience that students feel on campus and the community feeling that they have there, I think makes Warwick a very, very attractive place to study. We're a campus university. It feels like a small city, really. We have just under 30,000 students on our university campus, and you will see it's quite a modern university. So if you're expecting anything that looks a little bit like Hogwarts, you're going to be disappointed. Our buildings are a lot more modern, but in terms of that, you know, it's very state-of-the-art with a lot of fantastic facilities for you. It feels like a small city, so not only do we have all of the academic buildings, we have about 7,000 accommodation rooms, we have a cinema, a theatre, an art gallery, an auditorium, a supermarket, a doctor's surgery, a pharmacy, restaurants, bars, coffee shops, we even have a nightclub, swimming pool, climbing wall, you name it, we've got it. So it really does feel like a small city in a community. The benefit, I know I'm very biased, but I think the benefit of that is that everything is very walkable. You will bump into your friends a lot more frequently than if you were dotted around a city. And by everything being no more than a 10-minute walk away from each other, means that you have a lot more time in your day. So you'll be able to pop home for your lunch. You'll be able to meet a friend for that coffee in between your lectures. You can have a lecture in the morning, go and do your sports practice in the afternoon. You can really make the most of your time here. Now, what can you study at Warwick? So we have a number of different departments across 3 different faculties. So we have our social sciences, which includes things like the business school, law, sociology, politics, engineering, science and medicine. Just as a caveat, we do not do undergraduate medicine. We only offer it at postgraduate level, but we offer things like computer science, mathematics, biomedical science, chemistry, physics, engineering, all of these sorts of courses. And then within our arts and humanities, we have things like modern foreign languages, English, history, liberal arts, all of these sorts of courses. Now, if you come and visit me on the stand, you'll see that the number of degrees we have are much, much larger than that. You can do joint degrees, you can do specific courses, multidisciplinary degrees. So there is many, many more available than what's listed here. These are just the main departments. You can sometimes do a single honours degree, you can do joint honours degree, and then we have even more variety of things like MORS, which stands for Maths, Operational Research, Statistics and Economics, or Global Sustainable Development, which looks at a whole range of different courses in that sustainability factor, liberal arts, PPE, politics, philosophy, economics, so many different cohorts that you could look at. Now, the scholarships that Warwick offers, so Warwick has offered these scholarships since 2020. That was unfortunately since the fees went up after Brexit. We created them mainly because of the European students and wanted to try and keep our European students as much as possible because we really value them. However, legally we're not allowed to just offer it to Europeans, so it is a global excellence scholarship. But it is one of the largest scholarships, I think, for any competitive university that's on offer. So over the years, we've had between 200 and 250 scholarships that we've been able to give to our students. We have a certain number of 100% scholarships, which covers all of the tuition fees available. We have a larger number of 50% scholarships, so half the tuition fees, and then a number of 25% scholarships as well. There's certain criteria for those. So if any of you are UK passport holders and you're still eligible for UK fees, you won't be eligible. This is only suitable for overseas funded students. And you need to have submitted your UCAS application before the January deadline. So are those of you all familiar with the different deadlines set by UCAS? Yes? So you'll know that applications open in September. If you're applying for Oxford or Cambridge, you need to apply by mid-October. And for the rest of the universities, you should be applying by the January deadline. That changes every year, but it's normally between mid to late January. That deadline means that whether you apply in September or mid-January, we give you the same consideration no matter when you applied. But after that deadline, most selective universities like Warwick are most likely to go, sorry, we're full, we've got no more space available. So it's really important that you apply by then. So the application is also, the scholarship is also available for any subject area. It doesn't matter which of the degrees you're applying for. And most importantly, you don't need an offer to apply to the scholarship. Now, that's very important when we start looking at the dates, which is on the next slide. Sorry about that. But just to give you an overview, if we had 250 scholarships available last year, we had over 2,500 applications. So you're still looking at least 10 to 1 applications per place. So although we offer a lot of scholarships, it's still a very, very competitive process. But the idea is that we're trying to make as many students happy as possible from across all departments and across all of the world. So it's still a very, very competitive process. So the application timeline, so this has remained relatively similar over the past couple of years. If you're looking to apply in 2 or 3 years' time, that might change. But to give you an idea of the sorts of deadlines that we're looking for this year, applications opened in November. And you have the deadline until March to submit your application. Now, bear in mind the January deadline happens in January, but not all of you will have received an offer by the 20th of March. Now, that's very important. You should still apply before this deadline, even if you haven't yet got an offer. It's because when we receive 2,500 applications, it takes us an awful long time to read through them, and we need to make sure that we've got these suitable for you. So in March till May, your application will be scored by our team internally. Now in May, there's another deadline set out by UCAS, and that is the deadline when all universities must give their decisions back to those who applied by the January deadline. So hopefully you'll receive 5 successful decisions from the different universities, and then UCAS will give you another 2 or 3 weeks to make your decisions. So if you have 5 offers, you're going to decline 3 of them, and you'll keep 1 as insurance and 1 as your firm choice. Now, Warwick will make sure that we let you know if you've got a scholarship within that 2 or 3 week timeline. So it is quite tight before you need to choose your firm and insurance choice, but we will not say you have to choose Warwick as your firm choice before we even consider making you an offer for the scholarship. So we will make sure that you have that information to hand before you need to choose your firm and insurance. So if you're very reliant on obtaining a 50% scholarship or higher, we won't tell you until you've made your decisions. So we try and be as fair as possible. But because of the large amount of applications we receive, We do leave it right as close to that deadline as necessary, because our admissions teams are making offer until that May deadline, and then we need to make sure that we've equally scored everybody as part of it. So, and then we communicate before June 2025, which is before the deadline when you need to choose your firm and insurance choices. So how can you start preparing for scholarships? So it's a similar sort of process, I suppose, as to what you might need for your UCAS application when you're writing your personal statement. The process that we have this year, we have a number of set questions that you need to answer, and you need to give careful thought to them. If you're just dashing off answers quickly, they're unlikely to be very good. They won't, really show you off to your best of ability. So you really need to give yourself time to think about it and read the instructions carefully. So there will be the question, and there might be a little information dot where you can click on to give you a bit more expansion as to exactly what we're looking for in that course. So make sure that you've understood and read it. What our questions have been on the last year or so have been about extracurricular activities, what you might want to do in the future, hopes and achievements, career goals, these sorts of things. So keep those in mind when you're starting to think about those questions. So when you're starting to write your UCAS application, obviously you would hopefully put a lot of thought into it about how are you how are you well suited to this course? Why do you want to study this course at university? What evidence have you given to demonstrate your interest in this course? And you will back up those statements with evidence. What no university likes to see is broad brush statements that don't go into any detail. For example, if you want to say, I have read 20 books on economics, they are blah, 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 blah. That doesn't tell us anything about you. We don't know if you've read them, we don't know if you've understood them. You could have just walked along a library and picked down 20 subjects. We have no idea what you've got out of that experience of reading those books. So we'd much rather that you pick one book, one chapter, one example, and expand on it. It's that sort of personal approach that we're looking for to give you those sorts of information. We know in your UCAS application form that you've done so much in your 16 or 17 years of life, but you can't possibly write all of that on a UCAS form. You need to be selective. You need to think of 2 or 3 examples and go into it in more detail. So in terms of how is it similar to a personal statement on your scholarship application form, we're still expecting that you're picking 1 or 2 examples and expanding on it. We're still looking for that sort of information. How it's different from a UCAS personal statement is that with UCAS, you're submitting 1 application, it's going off to 5 universities. When you're applying for the scholarship at the University of Warwick, you know you're applying specifically to the University of Warwick. So feel free to give exact examples about any research that you've done around the sports clubs that are available, or how you will actually see yourself living at the University of Warwick and how it will focus you towards wanting to study there. This is only being written for the University of Warwick, so you can tailor your applications and your examples in a lot more detail. So what can you do to research? So you can find lots of information on our Student Union website about the different sports clubs and societies. So at the University of Warwick, we have over 300 different students' clubs and societies. We have about 70 different sports clubs. We have 250 societies. We have academic societies, cultural societies, Model UN, Economic Summit, all sorts of different things. And you can always find on the Student Union website examples of what they've done in the past, what you can do to be involved in those opportunities. And you can look at, internships, what sort of jobs do we work with? That could help towards your career goals. You can find all of this information on the websites. So keep all of those in mind. Now, for example, in the Student Union societies, I've mentioned we've got many of them. So have a look on the website. Do any of these resonate with you? If there are, what would you be interested in joining? And bear in mind that when you're writing any of the answers. Now, some of these are very, amusing, like the Pantomime Society. We've got a Chocolate and Cheese Society there. But if you're going into finance, we've also got a trading society. We've got, bio society. If you're going into biomedical science, have a look at what those are involved and see, what interests you. But there's a huge range of things. You don't need to just stick to your particular subject that you're applying for. This is all about you and how you're going to support within the wider community at the University of Warwick. So have a look. There's so much there available. So pick something interesting. We also have a lot of sports clubs. So if you already play sports at school and you want to carry that on at university, you're very, very welcome to do that. But you might also want to pick up something new when you're there, and that's absolutely fine as well. As a personal example, when I started university, I had no idea what I wanted to do for my club and society, and then somebody jumped in front of me in a karate suit and said, "Have you ever interested in studying karate?" I was like, "No." "Would you like to try?" "Okay." And then that's when I made most of my friends. I wasn't expecting that, but I was open to the opportunity. So it doesn't matter. You could already be playing football at the highest level, and you want to carry that on, that's fine. But if you haven't had the opportunity to play, I don't know, Quidditch or, karate or lacrosse or something like that, try it and mention it.
Is there basketball?
Yes, there is. Yes. We have basketball. We have a team. They're called the Warwick Bears. So, yes, you can join those. So, yes, there'll be competitive clubs, but there's also just learning about it and going along for fun. So think about your time at university. It's a time for you to explore, to expand. So tell us about what you're excited in joining. There are so many different options and things that you can look into. So what are we going to ask you in the scholarship application? So this has varied over the years, and it could still change from year to year. We're completely within our rights to do that. A couple of years ago, we looked very much at the academic merit, so we're looking at how much above the predicted grades are you required to get. The last couple of years, we've based it more on student society, how you will be involved in the student communities at the university, and your career goals. So these are examples of last year's questions. And you had 150 words to answer these questions. So that's not very much. So you still need to be concise, you need to do a couple of drafts, you need to get friends and family to have a look over it and make sure that you think you've written the best possible example for these. But really take your time to think about it and how you can integrate yourself on the university campus, but also what skills have you also brought in mind that you can tell us about. Now, I've got a couple of examples of these questions and what some of the students have given to demonstrate the top answers. So what we can see here, what have you achieved academically beyond your school curriculum? So for this example, obviously they've done a lot of Model UN conferences, but you'll see they're going into more information there. My ability to think critically, to conduct research and these sorts of things. He's got his skills. And he goes into what these experiences taught me. So he's going beyond telling us just what it is, but he's expanding on that subject. So we're really getting to understand more of their experiences. Now, these are some of the top scoring answers from 2022. We don't expect you to copy it word for word, but it gives you an idea of what the sort of things that have graded very highly. The next one. Now, I quite like this one because, as I've mentioned, you might be looking to expand on a couple of different areas. He's broken it down into community service and extracurriculars. The first one, you can see he's expanded a little bit on what he's coordinated a programme, underprivileged children to be able to tutor them, custodian-centred initiatives. But then you'll also find in the extracurriculars, he started off by listing a couple of different things, but then he's picked one in more detail to expand on that in more detail, in a lot more detail than the others. So he's telling us, I've done a number of different things, but I'm going to pick one example and expand on it in a little bit more detail. So we're still getting a good broad understanding of what he's been involved in overall, but he's being selective. He's picking one or two and expanding on his answer for it. What has influenced your decision to study the chosen subject? Now, again, some of this could be a little bit similar to what's in your UCAS form, but you can link this one more to the University of Warwick. So if there's anything specific within the modules, if there's anything really interesting that you're very excited to be involved with, tell us about it. So this one talks about an advocate for women in STEM. That's something that we offer at the University of Warwick. That's a society that we do. You can still focus it a little bit more towards Warwick, but again, they're expanding on what they're doing. How will a scholarship help to make a contribution to the academic and social communities at Warwick? So for this one, it's not just about, I need a scholarship because I won't be able to afford it otherwise. We're looking for, what wider areas can you bring to it? What will having the scholarship mean to you, and what sort of extracurricular activities will you be able to undertake because of getting this scholarship? So this person is telling them what they will do. I will integrate into the new environment. I'm going to make a conscious effort to do that. I will sign up for societies. The thing that makes Warwick such a lovely community is the fact that our students want to join into societies. We have 300 because they're set up by our own students. It's not an initiative that the university has done. These have all been set up by students who have thought, I think this would really help me in my interests or to further my career. They've been set up by students for students, and keeping those going or setting up new societies is something that we really value from our students here. So telling us what you will sign up in, any particular ones that take your interest, this really helps your time. And this says, by having the scholarship will allow me to spend my holidays on research project rather than perhaps having to work to earn some money. You'll be able to get more out of it to be able to help your research and build your CV. So it's just giving you ideas of what might you want to think about. And then thinking about your career. So obviously we don't expect everybody to have a full idea of what job you want to go into when you graduate, but you can be thinking about, the rough idea. It's not set in stone by any means, but it just means that you're understanding, you're thinking about where your degree can take you and having some ideas at this stage that you might want to be involved in. Again, when you're writing your personal statement and you're demonstrating your love for the subject, you can expand on what you're writing about that to think more of the future. So there's no right or wrong way of doing it, but just make sure that you're going into more detail rather than saying, well, with this degree, I could be this, or this. I don't know yet, but we'll see. We need to see a lot more detail of you demonstrating what you're doing. Is all of this making sense so far? Good. So, top tips. So take your time, as I've mentioned, none of these answers, these top answers that I've written, will have been dashed off on the first attempt. Really take time to think about it. Make a long list and then reduce it, however works best for you, but give yourself time. Give examples and expand on them. And write about what you have gained during that, what skills you've gained. Don't repeat yourself in any of the different ones. The same person will be reading all 5 statements. So if you're using the same tired example in 3 out of 5 of these questions, we're going to think, oh, maybe you haven't got that much extra going for you. So try and think about new examples rather than repeating the same things. As I've said, this is specifically an application for the University of Warwick, so picture yourself there. Go on the website, look at the 360-degree tour, look at the clubs and societies, look at the modules that you can do on that course, and really see what takes your interest, and then tell us about how that will affect you and how you can see yourself studying there. Most importantly, check your spelling and grammar. That won't be available, I don't think it's available in the actual application form, so maybe you might want to write it on a word processing document first and copy and paste it over. But just make sure you've done that word count so that you're not over 150 words, because otherwise it will chop the end off and then you'll have a sentence missing. So make sure that you're always paying attention to those areas. And there's a nice little bit of advice from a scholar. So we know it's always hard to big yourself up and talk about yourself. But at the end of the day, we're trying to learn more about you and your interests. So make sure that you're taking time to think about it and big yourself up. And that can help by getting friends and family to read your statements, because they see you probably in a lot more positive light than you see yourself. Sometimes it's hard to think positively about yourself and write, in a very positive manner. So choose your friends, choose your loved ones, get them to read it, and they might be able to say, oh, I think you could use a stronger word there. You're not just good at this, you're great. Think about the different wording and make sure that you've really given it your all.